Think about the last time you Googled an everyday question. Something like how to find a reliable plumber for a leaking pipe or best laptop for working from home. You typed it in, and before you even got to the search results, there was an answer right there at the top. A full paragraph written by AI summarizing everything you needed to know. And you read it. You probably read the whole thing. And then, be honest, you closed the tab, you didn't even click a single link. Now, here's what makes that moment worth paying attention to. You are not the only person doing that. Your customers are doing it too. The people who used to find your website by scrolling through Google results or getting their answers before they ever reach your link. And if that's happening to you, how much of your traffic is quietly disappearing without you even noticing? How much worse does this get 6 months from now? The data paints a very clear picture. But before we get into the data, there is a naming problem that trips everybody up, and it's worth clearing up right now. If you have started looking into this, you have probably run into half a dozen different terms: GEO, AEO, AI SEO, LLMO, Search Everywhere Optimization. There are people who swear these are all different things, people who say they're all the same thing. And honestly, the whole conversation can make your head spin before you have even learned what any of it actually means. So let me simplify it. GEO stands for Generative Engine Optimization. And in plain language, GEO is getting AI like ChatGPT to recommend what you offer when someone searches for the problem you solve. That's it. That's the whole concept. The reason GEO is the most precise term is right there in the name. You are optimizing for engines that generate answers, engines that read everything, synthesize it, and write their own response. AEO, AI SEO, all other terms are describing pieces of the same shift. GEO is the term that captures the whole thing. One concept, one term, that's all you need going forward. For about 25 years, searching the internet worked the same way. You had a question, but you couldn't just ask it. You had to translate it into keywords. Instead of, how do I find a reliable plumber to fix a leaking pipe under my kitchen sink? You would type something like, reliable plumber kitchen leak near me. You learned to think like a search engine because that was the only way to get results. And on the other side of that search, businesses learned to play the same game. They figured out which keywords people were typing. They built pages around those keywords, and they competed for the top spots on that list of 10 blue links. That's SEO. The entire discipline built around one simple reality. People type keywords, Google shows links, the highest link wins. Then, in November 2022, something happened that changed everything. ChatGPT launched, and it reached 1 million users in 5 days. Within 2 months, 100 million people were using it. As of February 2026, 900 million people use it every single week. And what those people discovered was something that felt almost obvious once you experienced it. You didn't have to translate your thoughts into keywords anymore. You could just ask your question the way you would ask a friend. How do I find a reliable plumber to fix a leaking pipe under my kitchen sink? And you would get a real, complete answer. A single, coherent response that pulls from dozens of sources and gives you exactly what you need, without you having to click through 5 different websites and piece the answer together yourself. And this is where it gets important for anyone with a website or a business. Gartner predicts traditional search volume will drop 25% by 2026. 80% of all searches already result in 0 clicks, meaning the person gets what they need without ever visiting a website. And AI referred traffic grew 527% year over year between January and May of 2025. Now, if you're sitting there feeling a bit overwhelmed, if part of you is thinking, great, another thing I need to learn, another shift, another set of rules to keep up with, I want to pause here for a second. That feeling is real and it's valid. The pace of change in digital marketing over the last 2 years has been genuinely exhausting. It can feel like you just figured out one thing and now the ground is shifting again. But here's what I would want you to hold on to: GEO isn't one more thing stacked on top of everything else. This is the thing that's underneath the changes you have already been noticing: the declining click through rates, the AI summaries showing up in Google, the clients asking questions about ChatGPT that nobody seems to have answers to. Understanding GEO doesn't add to the pile, it explains the pile. So the question becomes, when someone asks ChatGPT a question and it writes a complete answer, how does it decide which sources to pull from? Why does it cite some websites and completely ignore others? This is the part that most videos on this topic skip entirely. And it's actually the part that matters most, because once you understand the mechanism, everything else about GEO makes intuitive sense. When you type a question into ChatGPT, a sequence of things happens behind the scenes. First, the AI breaks your question into components. It figures out what you are really asking, the actual intent behind the words. Then it searches. And here's something most people don't realize: ChatGPT uses Bing search index, not Google's. It pulls information from across the web, evaluating dozens of potential sources. But it doesn't just grab the first result it finds. It's asking a very specific set of questions about each source. Is this content from someone credible? Is the information current? Is this well structured enough that I can extract a clear answer from it? Does this source get mentioned consistently across other parts of the web? The sources that pass those filters are the ones that get woven into the AI's answer. And some of those sources get something extra: a citation, a little numbered link at the bottom that points back to their website. I'm going to search for something in Gemini, Google's AI, and pay attention to how it constructs its answer. And I'm going to use the same question from earlier: find a reliable plumber to fix a leaking pipe under my kitchen sink. See how it opens up Google Maps, pulls from multiple sources, and weaves them into a coherent response. And these citations in the response, they are there because the AI evaluated each source and decided it was trustworthy enough to reference. A plumbing company that has clear Google business profile, strong reviews, and expert credentials on their site is the kind of source that gets cited here. Now, the same question in ChatGPT. Different platform, different AI, but notice how some of the same sources appear. That's because the trust signals that make content citable are consistent across platforms. Also notice ChatGPT doesn't pull any result from Google Maps. When your content is structured well, when it demonstrates genuine expertise, when your name shows up consistently across the web, multiple AI engines reach the same conclusion about your credibility. Those citations are what GEO is about: being the source that AI trusts enough to put in front of the person asking the question. Now, there's a conversation happening online, and I want to address directly because you will run into it the moment you start reading about this. On one side, you have people saying SEO's dead, AI killed it, everything you know is obsolete. On the other side, you have people saying GEO is just rebranded SEO. There is nothing new here, don't fall for the hype. They are both wrong. About 60% of what you know from SEO transfers directly into GEO. Creating high quality content that genuinely helps people still matters, arguably more than ever, because AI engines are remarkably good at distinguishing genuinely useful content from content that was written just to rank. Building authority in your space is still critical. Understanding how people search and what they are looking for is still the foundation of everything. So, if you have SEO experience, you're starting from a strong foundation. But there are real differences and they matter. The first, in SEO, you're competing for a position on a list. Number 1, number 2, number 3. In GEO, there is no list. There is no position 1 in a ChatGPT response. What matters is whether AI cites you at all. And when it does, it's recommending you as a trusted source. The second, in SEO, keywords are the currency. You optimize for specific phrases. In GEO, the AI understands meaning, not just phrases. It's looking for content that demonstrate deep understanding of a topic, the connections between ideas, the reasoning behind recommendations, the nuance that shows genuine expertise. The third, freshness matters significantly more. AI citations tend to favor content that's 25% fresher than what typically ranks in traditional Google results. The AI is looking for the most current, accurate information, which means regularly updating your content is a core part of the strategy. You're adding a layer to what you already know, and that layer is what separates the businesses that stay visible in this new landscape from the ones that gradually become invisible. So, where exactly are people getting these AI generated answers? There are 5 platforms worth knowing about right now, and they don't all work the same way. Number 1, Google AI Overviews. The AI generated summary that appears at the top of Google search results. It leans heavily on YouTube, Reddit, and Quora as sources. Number 2, ChatGPT. 900 million weekly users, pulls from Bing search index, tends to favor authoritative news sources like Reuters and Associated Press. Number 3, Perplexity. Built specifically for research, cites its sources more transparently than any other platform, and tends to favor niche and regional sources. Number 4, Gemini. Google's AI assistant, deeply integrated with Google's ecosystem. Number 5, Grok, built into the X platform with real-time access to social media conversations. Each of these platforms weighs trust signals slightly differently. Only 7 of the top 50 domains appear consistently across all of them, which means if you optimize for just one platform, you're leaving visibility on the table. How to optimize for all of them is what this series is about. Now, depending on where you are right now, you might be feeling one of the 3 things. Some of you are thinking, this is just SEO with a new name. I have seen this pattern before. New buzzword, same fundamentals, and in a year, nobody will be talking about it. And I understand that skepticism, because you're right that our industry cycles through hype faster than it should. But zero-click searches going from 50% to 80% is real. 900 million weekly ChatGPT users is real. This is a structural shift, and the data behind it keeps growing. Some of you are feeling overwhelmed, another technology shift, another set of things to learn, and you're already stretched thin, keeping up with what you have on your plate. If that's you, I want you to know that everything in this series is designed to be one step at a time. You don't need to understand all 5 platforms by tomorrow. You just need to understand the direction things are moving. And you have already done that by watching this far. And some of you are sitting there with a very practical question. Here's something you can do right now, today, in the next 2 minutes. Open ChatGPT, type in a question that someone in your industry would ask, something about your business should be the answer to. For example, if you run a pet store in Tampa, type best pet stores in Tampa for exotic fish. If you're a personal trainer, try best personal trainers near me for beginners. See what's coming up. See who gets cited. See if your name is anywhere in that response. And if you're not sure what to ask, here's an even easier approach. Paste this into ChatGPT. I run a describe your business. What are 5 questions a potential customer would ask an AI assistant that my business should be the answer to? It will write the questions for you, Then open a fresh chat and ask those questions one by one. That's the moment when this stops being abstract and becomes personal. 15 minutes ago, GEO was a term you may not have heard before, or maybe you had heard it but couldn't quite pin down what it meant or why it mattered. Now you know exactly what it is, you understand the shift that created it, the move from keyword based search to AI generated answers. You have seen the mechanism, how AI engines decide which sources to trust and cite. You understand how it relates to what you already know about SEO, and you have a clear picture of the platforms where this is happening. That's a significant shift in understanding, and it puts you ahead of the vast majority of marketers who are still wondering what's going on. There's a GEO visibility checklist in the description. It breaks down into three sections. The first helps you assess where you currently stand with AI search visibility. The second identifies 5 specific gaps that might be keeping you from getting cited. And the third gives you a 30-day priority plan so you know exactly what to focus on first. The next video in this series takes everything we have covered today and makes it concrete. You will see exactly how AI search engines evaluate a real website, what they look for when deciding whether to cite it, and the specific changes that can make a site go from invisible to recommended. If that sounds like the natural next step from here, subscribe so you don't miss it. Everything we covered today answers the what and the why, but the question underneath all of it, the one that actually changes your results, is how AI engines evaluate your specific website. The full series breaks that down step by step, starting from exactly where you are right now.